Hello. Uh, this is a review. I'm making a review of the latest Star Wars show. Wow, Star Wars Andor. I've kind of been putting this one. I've been putting this review off because I actually kind of have a lot to say about this movie. Sorry, I keep looking around. I'm trying to like mitigate no extra noise coming from other rooms, but I've kind of been putting off talking about this show because it's actually really good. I'll just say that right. You've probably, if you've heard of Andor, you've probably heard people saying, "Wow, I can't believe Andor was actually good," because Star Wars has been on a bad streak. I've not reviewed a Star Wars project since The Rise of Skywalker in 29. I think I put out that review in very early 2020, if I recall correctly. And I that the sequel trilogy pretty much killed my interest in Star Wars, as it did with a lot of people. I've seen some of The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian is a decent show, but honestly, I don't like that. That is the show that for a while was being hyped up as, wow, guys, Star Wars is good again, and I was still just kind of like I was about to say Andor. The Andor, weird. Okay, stop being stupid. The Mandalorian's fine, but not anything all that special. I feel like it's very much a Star Wars thing if you like Star Wars things. Andor is just a really interesting, like, political spy thriller drama show that uses the Star Wars universe to like give you larger context. It takes such a deep dive into the so Andor is a show about, I should say what it's about first. It's about the character of Cassian Andor from Rogue One, a character I really did not remember because it's been years since I've seen Rogue One. I think I reviewed that movie. I honestly don't know if I did. That movie is also good. I think it's one of the better Disney Star Wars things, but it wasn't like a standout to me. This Andor show is like that ramped up to a degree. Andor is not your typical Star Wars hero's journey. The good guys fight the bad guys with lightsabers. There are no Jedi. There are no Sith. There are no lightsabers. They don't use the Force. There's no big character. The closest thing to a cameo is an end credits scene at the end of the very last episode that shows part of the Death Star being built. That's the closest thing to a Star Wars fan stinger thing. And it's literally at the end of the show. It's just kind of an afterthought. This isn't a show that relies on Easter eggs or Tatooine or making you look and go, "Oh, that's the character I remember." Oh, it's a movie about it's a show about a B tier character from a side Star Wars movie, and it's basically about his rise to become a rebel leader. But he's not this Luke Skywalker hero type who gets drawn into the rebellion. He's this he's this rogue, this thief, this guy just trying to make a living for himself and not get in trouble with the Imperial forces. And this show does a great job of showing his struggle with the Imperial forces. That the main character, he is smart. He is incredibly smart and incredibly crafty and is able to get himself out of a lot of dangerous situations. And we see this is the Imperials are not stormtrooper helmet wearing goons who miss all their shots and bang their heads. They are crafty and creative individuals with human characteristics and personalities who are just as driven and dedicated to their cause as, and honestly, in some cases, more driven and dedicated to their cause than Andor. Part of Andor's story is that he's not he's kind of just doing everything out of self-preservation, and only by the end of the season does he express a real desire to rebel for the sake of rebellion. So much of it is about the rebellion, because the show takes place before Rogue One, in peak Empire reign between episodes 3 and 4 of Star Wars, where the Empire has taken over, and you really see the like imperial bureaucracy of the Empire. This is not a show where they're this cartoonish force. This is a show where a character gets interrogated in an episode, and to torture her into confessing, to like giving them info, they play the Empire goons play the screams of a dying alien race that they genocided, whose death screams caused mental distress in their soldiers, and now they use this as a torture technique. Like that's so dark and intense and grounded within a heightened sci-fi universe, obviously, but grounded in something that it's grounded in a much more like dark and realistic sense of like wartime morality, wartime empires. The Empire has always been kind of a Nazi allegory, fascism story. But Andor is the first thing I've seen that really takes a like adult look at like anti-fascism rebellion stories beyond like, oh, the hero rebels and saves the day. Like it's so much more complicated than that. There is a rebel leader character who is sort of puppet mastering the rebels, named Luthen, who is not really a very good guy. He's willing to sacrifice people for the cause. He's willing to sacrifice people to keep his intel guy in the cause. He gives this big monologue, like 9 episodes, late in the back half of the show, about how he's given up everything to rebel. Donned in this like black cloak, in this very like Sith Lord looking attire. They dress, and they do this a lot, where it's like the rebels are not these like virtuous heroes all the time, and the Empire is not always these like Hitler-esque like black coat, black like helmet, Darth Vader looking villains. They're people trying to do their job, and it makes all the characters are really, really interesting. You're not just waiting for the main character to like show up and do something cool, or waiting for the action scenes, because there aren't even that many action scenes. I'd say each, like, there's kind of 3 story arcs within the season. There's the Aldhani heist arc, the prison break arc, and then the final arc in which rebellion really kicks off in the town that Andor is from, that they get sick of the Imperial. And each arc basically culminates in its own like action sequence, but the action feels so earned because it's not like, look at the guys fighting with the lightsabers, look at the guns, pew pew pew. It's like daring acts of rebellion and heroism in the face of this like oppressive fascist bureaucracy. It's very, very mature in a way that I'm sure I've expressed issues in my previous Star Wars videos, issues about how a lot of Star Wars fans just seem to want, or just seem to have wanted, this very like boring basic hero's journey, black and white idea of Star Wars. The whole Rey Skywalker thing, and like making her a part of this like family legacy and bringing Palpatine back. Basically everything they did in The Rise of Skywalker, the episode 9, feels like it was geared to appeal to fans who got upset by the idea of Star Wars actually having like complex moral discussions or ideas, but in The Last Jedi. Because I would argue that Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, episode 8, toys with that for Star Wars, and for that reason, I enjoy that movie a lot in a vacuum. Unfortunately, it's the part of a very messy trilogy. But this doesn't have Andor does not have the misfortune of being part of a very messy trilogy. It gets to be its own thing. There's 12 episodes. There's almost certainly going to be a season 2. I think one's already been confirmed. They definitely set up for one at the end. And I just want to see this show because this is honestly not just with Star Wars, but just with Disney Plus in general. This is the closest thing to a prestige drama that Disney Plus has. I would say it counts as a prestige drama. It's not as great as something like Better Call Saul or Succession. Like it's not it's not quite top TV of the year, but it is a hell of a lot better than any of the Marvel shows and really anything else in the Star Wars universe, in my opinion, up to this point. Granted, I haven't seen a lot of Clone Wars. I know Clone Wars has its, hype, but this feels like the most mature and adult thing to come out of the Star Wars brand. It's not focused on entertaining. This wouldn't entertain your kids. It's focused on being a story about rebellion against a fascist rule and what being a rebel, not even a hero, but specifically what rebellion really means. It's very political. It doesn't draw direct parallels to real world politics or anything like that. It's very much within its universe and within its story, but it's an inherently very political story, and I think it's the first thing that that Disney has made under the Star Wars branding that really uses and expands on a lot of the world building that is in the prequels, episodes 1 through 3. Because those movies are not really very good movies. They have a lot of problems, in my opinion. I'm not a prequel lover. I'm not a prequel defender. But I do think what those movies do have that is good is a lot of really interesting world building and political table setting that this show is able to follow up on. The Clone Wars show also has that strength from what I know about it. But this serves as a really nice bridge. I think that when Andor the show is over, Andor plus Rogue One will end up serving as this really interesting bridge, this really interesting sub-series for Star Wars that will allow you to see the origin point of the rebellion in episode 4 and trace it all the way up to Luke. And that's really cool. That's what I think Star Wars should be doing right now. Less of this Kenobi show, Boba Fett show. Let's pick a fan favorite character and butcher them with an adaptation that leaves fans unsatisfied and also adds nothing to the universe. Stop. Just this is what I think the value of a cinematic universe is, since Disney clearly wants Star Wars to be another cinematic universe for them. The value of a cinematic universe is in tapping into these little corners and really thoroughly examining, okay, where does this go from here? And Marvel has done that, but also kind of failed to do that. They've never done it as thoroughly as this show is doing it. I think this show works regardless. If you're tired of Star Wars and want something less black and white, hero versus villain, what you like, if you like that universe but are tired of the kind of stuff that Disney has been making in that universe, Andor is literally the show for you. It is the show made for you. And I think even if you don't really care that much about Star Wars, it could be intriguing as a political drama on its own. Granted, the show doesn't really take time to explain Star Wars lore. It kind of expects you to have seen other Star Wars stuff and know basic lore aspects. So it might be useful to watch the original trilogy beforehand, or maybe just Rogue One, something. But I think it's a seriously great show and one that stands out as really the best Star Wars thing and probably the best Disney Plus original content that has been made so far. I'm very excited to see more of it. I will watch Star Wars. I want Star Wars projects like this. Please watch Star Wars stuff like this, so they keep making stuff like this and not stuff like Kenobi or Book of Boba Fett or like these weird like Solo. Like I don't make the good stuff. This is good. This is a step in the right direction for Star Wars content. Content. I'm calling this lumping in this show with this show is right at the borderline of like content, the like consume the IP content and just like prestige drama stuff. Like it's not like it's right there on that line where it's kind of where it appeals to both crowds, but not in a way that dumbs down the drama. Like it's just really good. It's just a really good story. When it has a little bit of pacing issues at the beginning. It can be a little slow sometimes. And it doesn't, like, in the first couple episodes, the pace is like, all right, well, I don't really know these characters well enough yet, but when it ramps up and gets exciting, it's like it's not just exciting, it's like powerful. There's some powerful sequences in this Star Wars media. And I may sound like I'm overhyping it a bit. I'm like, to be clear, it's not like the best show ever made, but I don't think I'm overhyping it. It's a very good, even great show, and I would